Coming up on Phillies Nation, presented by BQ Basement Systems, Pat and Corey go through the good and the bad of the Phillies through the first quarter of the season. The guys also talk about the problems the Phillies have had with interleague play. Ian joins us from Lehigh Valley, Tommy Green joins us from the mound, and I've got the Batters Inbox questions, all ahead on Phillies Nation.
Welcome to the latest Phillies Nation presented by BQ Basement Systems. We are here at McStew's in Levittown, just off New Falls Road. Pat Gallen and Corey Seidman with you. As you can hear, I'm losing my voice, but we're going to power through it because we're baseball guys. We have to. But in this show, we will talk a lot about what we've seen through the first quarter of the Phillies season, and it starts with the veterans. And I talked to Ryne Sandberg about this last week, and the veterans were the talk of the preseason. Before the season began, the thought was they have to stay healthy, and if they do, this team could be pretty good. Well, they've all stayed healthy, and the team is still under 500. So it's been a rough go, but these guys, Rollins, Utley, Howard, they've all played pretty well, and that's good to see.
We're seeing that the veteran core of the Phillies doesn't automatically dictate their wins and losses, because if I told you that through the quarter mark of the season, Jimmy Rollins was going to have a .360 on-base percentage and be hitting fewer infield flies than ever before, if I told you Ryan Howard would be on pace for 28 to 30 homers, Marlon Byrd for 55 doubles, Chase Utley a top 3 MVP candidate, and Carlos Ruiz with a 400 on-base percentage, you'd think this is like a 25-16 team, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Especially combined with the starting pitching. But what we've seen is that all of those guys haven't all been hot at the same time. You had Utley doing everything early. Nobody else was really hitting. Howard had a couple weeks there where he was hitting a couple homers there. Jimmy Rollins has been coming on more of late, but it hasn't been an offensive 1 through 8 clicking at the same time. And when you combine that with the issues in the bullpen, the issues in the bench, a lot of the power issues in left field and center field, you're seeing a team that's been right around 500 through 40 games this season.
And Sandberg did tell me, hey, it's a team game, and it's nice that their numbers are very good. But overall, you look at the bullpen and the issues that they've had, it just hasn't all come together. Of those 5 guys, that group of veterans, Rollins, Utley, Ruiz, Howard, Byrd, who has surprised you most?
I'd say Marlon Byrd. I mean, I did expect him to have a solid season. I did expect him to hit 290 with a 800-ish OPS, but I didn't expect him to be displaying as much power as he has. He legitimately is on pace for 55 doubles this season. Right at the top of the NL in that category, Chase Utley's actually on pace for 67 doubles. And he's also been pretty surprising himself too, hitting over 330, MVP candidate like we said, but just to get that much production out of Marlon Byrd, who's aging, and people thought that last year was a fluke. I didn't really see eye to eye with that, but he's been very good out of the 5 hole.
Okay, so those guys have been pretty good. The guys that have not been so good, they have not lived up to expectations. Ben Revere and Dominic Brown. And you wrote about Ben Revere last week on CSNPhilly.com about him trying to find that Juan Pierre-ness that he hasn't been able to find. And we know that he can hit for average, but he can't get on base at a clip that you'd like to see out of a prototypical leadoff hitter. So start with Ben Revere. What do you see from him? What more do we need to see?
I thought Juan Pierre was a very apt comparison for Ben Revere for a couple reasons. They're 2 singles hitters, not a lot of power. They play the same position. Well, Pierre played center field in his prime. Not much of a center fielder because he has no arm like Ben Revere. Juan Pierre was hitting 320 a season in his prime. So he didn't walk, but he was able to hit 320, which enabled him to have like a 350 on base percentage. And once he stopped hitting 320, once he started hitting 280, all Juan Pierre found were 1-year deals. Because there's just not that much value there when you're a guy who only hits singles, has no power, has very little arm, and you don't get on base enough. And that's what we're seeing out of Ben Revere. 268 batting average, 284 on base percentage. His walk rate of 2.1%, he's walked in 2.1% of his plate appearances. That's in the bottom 3 in all of Major League Baseball. So he just hasn't been producing, and it's been tough for the Phillies to justify leading him off, and that's why we saw Jimmy Rollins reclaim that leadoff spot recently.
And one of the reasons why Revere's having so much trouble is because pitchers are pumping him with fastballs and daring him to hit them, and he just can't do it because they know he's not a power hitter. He doesn't have a home run.
I mean, why wouldn't you pump him with fastballs? That's another reason he's not walking, is because pitchers don't have to throw him a slider that they might miss with. They can just pump fastballs like you said, and what's the worst that can happen? You miss on a fastball right down the middle to Ben Revere. He hits a line drive single up the middle. He has no doubles this year. He has no homers in 1,542 plate appearances in his career. So really, what's the worst that could happen? A single?
Yeah, that's true. How about Dominic Brown, too? He has definitely not lived up to expectations. Last year, 27 home runs, an all-star bid, but just 215 this season through Sunday. That's not what we need to see from Dominic Brown. I expected a step forward, but it just hasn't gone the way that Dominic wanted it to go.
Dominic Brown is such a hard player to project. Like if we try to project him going forward here, what would you think, maybe 18 to 20 homers for the season? That seems realistic, but at the same time, how is he going to get to 18 to 20 home runs? He hit his second this past weekend against the Reds, but it's just been a tough season for Brown, really a tough year since the end of last May. Pitchers have been pitching him away since that power-packed May where he was hitting all of his home runs to right field. And what we've seen this year, going the other way a lot, taking the pitches where they're being pitched, but he just doesn't have enough opposite field power to be hitting it out there.
And what also hasn't gone right for the Phillies this season is their play at home. You would think home is where the heart is. That's where you play your best baseball. The fans are behind you. No, it hasn't gone that way. Check out these numbers. At home this year, 20 games played, a .239 average, their OBP just .307, and they've scored 20 fewer runs than they have on the road. And the record at home, 8-12, on the road, 11-10. So what's the difference there? What are you seeing as far as home and road splits?
Well, first off, small sample size, like we say often when we see numbers like this, but it's also the fact that they played a couple really good teams at home. They played the Braves at home, they played the Brewers at home, so that could be a little bit. The other aspect of it is Citizens Bank Park does not have the same home field advantage it once had, and a lot of that is based on the attendance. The Phillies have been filling about 69% of seats this season, which is way down from seasons past. Last year they were at like 86%. The preceding 3 or 4 years they were over 100% capacity every single night.
Yeah.
So now you have fewer fans in the seats. You have there's less of that aura at CBP, and teams just don't fear coming to Philly the way they once did.
Okay, also something that has not gone right, and this is all time for the Phillies, at least since interleague play began, and that's playing against the American League, and the numbers speak for themselves. 1-8 against the AL this year, and they've got 11 interleague games remaining this season. All time, 128 and 166. And what's also funny is that from 2006 to 09, which was obviously their prime seasons, they went 23 and 40 against the American League. It just has never gone right for the Phillies against the AL.
I've never been able to explain it because the Phillies have the second worst record among all National League teams in interleague play since it began. The only team that's been worse is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who for most of those years were like a 67-win team. So it makes sense that the Pirates will be at the bottom, not as much sense with the Phillies. They've lost 8 consecutive interleague games since winning the season opener in Texas. Troublesome. And they still have some difficult games remaining on that interleague schedule. They go to Oakland in September, for example. So, you know, the Phillies got to correct this. I don't know what it is. There is better hitting in the AL. The Phillies just never seem to adjust those AL parks.
All right, when we come back here on Phillies Nation, I'm going to drink a little tea with some honey in it, and Ian will talk with Seth Rosine. All that and more coming back here on Phillies Nation.
Hey, this is Ian Riccaboni here for Phillies Nation TV at beautiful Coca-Cola Ballpark. We're here today to talk to Seth Rosine, who you may remember came over from the San Francisco Giants in the Hunter Pence deal. Seth has been up and down in the minor leagues. He made his major league debut this year, but started his season in a place halfway across the globe.
I mean, it was an honor first and foremost. Getting to go to Australia with the rest of the Dodgers and getting to bring my dad along as well. It was a really good time.
It was a 7,500-mile trip to begin his season in Australia, but the 25-year-old's 2014 journey did not end there. 1 week into being with the Dodgers, Rosine was waived and then claimed by the Texas Rangers.
I mean, I had a really good spring, I thought, and I think I knew I was going to get a shot somewhere, at least for a little bit. And so I went over there and spent a couple weeks over there, so another good learning experience, and just had a lot of fun time over there as well.
His journey continued 2 weeks later when the right-hander was designated for assignment and returned to the Phillies.
I mean, it was bittersweet knowing I was going back to the minor leagues, but I mean, getting to see my friends again and stuff here, and knew the coaching staff, so I mean, it's kind of a relief at the same time knowing that I was going to get to go back to something familiar.
Rosine was first introduced to Philadelphia as a prospect from San Francisco in 2012, but being part of that trade is just one of the factors motivating him to become a name Philadelphia fans remember.
I know last year someone came up to me and he said that I better start performing a little bit better just because I was in that trade. So I know Tommy Joseph and I have talked about it a little bit. So I mean we try our best. So I mean whatever happens, but I expect to get back up to the major leagues and help out the team.
Thank you, Ian. We will stay down on the farm and talk about a couple of the bigger prospects in the Phillies organization. Of course, one being Michael Franco. 243 average, 3 homers and 17 RBIs so far this year. So he has picked it up because it was an ugly April for Franco in the last 10 games. He's hitting .351.
Michael Franco seems to be getting the hang of AAA pitching, which was a concern early in the season because, look, he's just 21, 22 years old. He's 6 years younger than the International League average, the average of the International League players. But Franco, in May, .338 batting average, 6 doubles, 2 homers, 10 RBIs. But what sticks out the most to me is 9 walks and 10 strikeouts, which shows me that he's able to adjust to what he's seeing. AAA is filled with veteran pitchers, guys who are either ascending or on the way down. So the fact that Franco is hitting these guys who used to be in the majors, I like to see that.
And a young pitcher that made his way to AAA is Ken Giles. We've pretty much talked about him in every single episode so far this year. And not too bad in AAA. 4 innings, giving up 3 hits, 1 run. He's walked 3, and he's struck out 2. We got a chance to meet up with his new pitching coach at AAA, Ray Burris. Here's what he had to say about Kenny Giles.
But Kenny is getting him to locate his fastball down in the zone, knowing when to elevate it based on swings and him learning how to read swings from a hitter. But he's got to be able to dominate down in the zone and think being a ground ball pitcher as opposed to a strikeout pitcher. If you think that way, whatever strikeouts you get, that's going to happen.
And now we go to some ex-Phillies prospects that you may know pretty well, and a couple of them were in some pretty decent trades, and one being Jared Cozart. He's at the major league level, along with Jonathan Villar. Not doing so much at the major league level, but again, they're young. It's going to take some time, and the Astros really aren't very good. But looking at AAA, Jonathan Singleton and Domingo Santana, they are 2 big power-hitting outfielders. Singleton's moved to first base recently, but Singleton, 274, 12 home runs. He is nearing the major leagues. He's going to be there soon. And Santana, he's a run-producing machine as well.
Domingo Santana has done nothing but hit since the Phillies traded him. Domingo Santana was almost an afterthought in that Hunter Pence deal. He was the player to be named later. And he's one of the top outfield prospects the Astros have, and really could be a guy who you would have seen up with the Phillies either last year or this year had he not been dealt. Yeah. When I look at that list, Jonathan Villar is the guy who sticks out to me because he plays an amazing defensive shortstop. He has speed. He has 10 steals this year. He has 5 homers, and he's shown some power beyond the homers. Jonathan Villar is almost like the Freddie Galvis who can hit a little bit too. Maybe not as elite defensively as Galvis, sure, but he can certainly hit. And if he was still in this system, the Phillies would be looking at him as the shortstop of the future with J.P. Crawford way down the pipeline. Sure. But Jonathan Villar has certainly produced for the Astros. That trade, those trades, as much as Ed Wade took heat for all those Houston deals with the Phillies,
they may work out pretty well for Houston.
Almost all of them have worked out, really.
And one guy that wasn't really a Phillies prospect, but was at AAA and then had a cup of tea in the major leagues, Brandon Moss is now fully entrenched in Oakland. 301 this year, 9 homers, he's knocked in 39, and he's got an on-base percentage of 391. That just happens, doesn't
Some
it?
guys don't put everything together until their late 20s. The Phillies saw it happen with Jason Worth, and they really haven't been able to have it happen with anybody since. Would have been nice if Brandon Moss started producing the way he's done with the Athletics in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. Let's go to a segment we like to call By the Numbers. And we start off with Carlos Ruiz. And since 2010, Chooch has been pretty good, and he's an on-base machine. 15th in all of the major leagues with a 376 on-base percentage, and that's with a minimum of 1,500 plate appearances. But look at some of the names that he's been better than. Jason Worth, David Wright, Dustin Pedroia, Albert Pujols, Cargo, and his teammate Chase Utley. It's pretty ridiculous.
That's incredible. The 2 guys that most impressed me about that list are David Wright and Dustin Pedroia, because not only do they hit 300 every year, they always have like a 400 OBP, it seems. They have excellent plate discipline. So for Carlos Ruiz to be ahead of those guys, that just shows how much Chooch has grown as an offensive player and how much he's still able to contribute.
And also, you have one on the Phillies?
I have one Phillies related. Ben Revere, I mentioned this earlier in the show. No home runs in 1,542 plate appearances in the major leagues. Yeah. Since 1947, that's what, 75 plus years ago? No player has finished a career with no home runs in that many plate appearances. So Ben Revere is entering uncharted territory. I'm not saying he's never going to hit one, but when I see him, I don't really know when he's going to hit one.
I feel like you say he's not ever going to hit one. Now let's go to our fantasy baseball segment. It's brought to you by DraftStreet.com, the future of fantasy sports, free one-day leagues where you can win cash prizes. Of course, last week I picked Marlon Byrd. He was only owned in 51% of Yahoo leagues, and he hits under 200. Who'd you pick?
I had Chase Headley, the Padres' third baseman, and I still think he's going to be a contributor moving forward. This week I'm taking his teammate Seth Smith, left fielder, right fielder, done nothing but hit this year. He was traded from Oakland to San Diego in the offseason for a reliever, but Smith hitting close to 320 this season. Homers, doubles, he has 12 doubles. Sure. Driving in runs, his last 2 weeks have been insane. He has an OPS over 1,000, and this is his first chance of like everyday duty. He never got that in Oakland where they like to platoon guys so much. Owned in less than 25% of Yahoo leagues. I think he could be a stud outfielder moving forward.
I'm going to go with Phil Hughes. You know him well, was a former Yankee pitcher. He's only owned in 21% of Yahoo leagues. And how about this? 40 strikeouts to just 6 walks this year. Pick him up because he's available, and he's a good option for the starting rotation.
And one thing I'm going to say about Phil Hughes, the problems that he had at Yankee Stadium were home run related, completely. Target field, the opposite end of the spectrum from Yankee Stadium. Pitcher-friendly park. When Hughes has those strikeout and walk numbers going, he can be as good as anybody, really.
Yeah, perfect place for him to be pitching. That's it for fantasy baseball. It's brought to you by DraftStreet.com. The future of fantasy sports. Visit DraftStreet.com. Use the promo code PhilliesNation to sign up for a free one-day fantasy league where you can win real cash prizes. Pat and Corey coming right back here on Phillies Nation.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation. We're here at McStew's, and it's time for our Batters Inbox questions, where the guys debate your question, and I'll pick the winner. Ready?
Let's do it. I'm ready to win.
All right, let's go. Our first question asks, it's been a rough season, but what has been the best thing to watch about the Phillies this year? Pat?
Well, I think the best thing to watch about the Phillies this year is Phillies Nation TV. But if it's going to be a player, I'm going to go with Carlos Ruiz. How awesome has it been to see him transform into this on-base machine over the last couple of years and really take hold of the team as a leader? And from behind the plate, we've heard for so many years how these guys love to throw to Carlos Ruiz. He's always uber prepared. Roy Halladay talked over and over again how he was just the consummate teammate. Everyone loves Chooch. But now at the plate, he's a feared hitter. He's getting on base, we talked about it earlier in the show, at a 376 clip over the last couple of seasons. That's impressive, especially from behind the plate where the wear and tear can get to you. And I'll be honest, I was one of the people who wasn't so sure about the 3-year contract they gave a catcher who was going to be 35 years old. So far, though, so good. I'm going with Carlos Ruiz.
Love me some Chooch, but there's only one way to answer this question, and that's Chase Utley. Because Chase Utley is reliving his prime right now. From 2005 to 2009, the years that we look at as Utley's prime, he hit .301 with a .922 OPS, 30 homer a year guy. Then, when the injury set in, became a lesser player, 265-ish hitter, struggled to get on base as much, but the last 2 seasons, if you look at Utley, hitting .299, just below what it was in his prime. This year he has a .946 OPS. He's doing it power-wise. Lead the NL in doubles. Chase Utley's just been unbelievable, and he's really re-entering that Hall of Fame conversation if he can put together 2-3 more really good years.
As much as I love Chooch, I'm going to have to go with Corey.
You couldn't, split the point there?
Chase Utley is the man.
He is the man.
Gotta go Utley.
Fine.
All right, our next question asks, you can choose one trait from 3 players around the league. Build your perfect MLB player. Corey?
I love this question. I'm going to go Mike Trout's quick right-handed swing, because we always talk about Utley's quick swing, but Mike Trout, that short, compact, powerful swing, there's nothing like it in baseball. I'm going to take Troy Tulowitzki's arm from shortstop because it is unbelievable. He can make a throw from anywhere on the field, and I'm going to go with Jimmy Rollins' defensive instincts. Like if I'm building a shortstop, I want Tulo's arm, Mike Trout's swing, and I want Jimmy's defensive instincts. He always knows when to spin, when to backhand a ball. He's just unbelievable defensively at shortstop, and he's never not going to be great. That's why Jimmy can hold so much value as he ages.
All right, that's 3 pretty good players. I think I've got 3 better. One being Joey Votto and his patience at the plate. The guy is a walk machine, and almost to a fault because they want this guy to be a power hitter in Cincinnati, and he almost walks too much, which is incredible to say, but I'm going to go with Votto's patience. I'm going to go with Giancarlo Stanton's power. The guy has immense power. You've seen the mammoth home runs he's been able to hit. One of these days, or one of these seasons, he's going to hit 50 home runs. You've seen the power is ridiculous. He's got some big arms too, man. I'll take that in a player. And finally, Billy Hamilton, Joey Votto's teammate in Cincinnati. You take his speed, and it's otherworldly. He gets to first base in 2 seconds. So you put all those together. Joey Votto, you put Billy Hamilton's speed in there, and you put Giancarlo Stanton's arms in there, and I think you've got a pretty good player.
Well, that's why I'm going with you. The ultimate baseball player right there.
All right, I'll take it.
Our last question says, who was the most underrated Philly of the 1990s? Corey?
I'll let Pat go first.
You're going to let me go first on
Go
this
for
one?
it.
All right. It took a lot because the 90s weren't a good time for the Philadelphia Phillies, but I'm going to choose Mike Lieberthal as an underrated Philly. And hear me out here. You can go with Kruk, you can go with Dalton. Are they really underrated, though? We always hear about those guys. You don't hear a lot about is Mike Lieberthal. He had 67 home runs in the 1990s, which is actually 3rd during the 90s for all players, which is, it's absurd, but he was the ultimate professional, great defensive catcher, and the fans love the guy, so I'm going to go with Lieberthal.
I'm going to go with friend of the show, Tommy Green, because if I don't, he's 3 times my size.
Yeah, he will
Brady
smash
might
you.
hurt me, but no. It's really hard to pick an answer to this because the 90s were pretty lean years for the Phillies, and anybody who did produce wasn't underrated. They were, if anything, overrated. John Kruk, for example, wasn't underrated. Fans love him in this town. A guy like Jim Eisenreich, for example, high OBP, but he wasn't really here long enough for me to say that he was the answer. So I got to agree with Lieberthal or my man Tommy Green.
I got to make one point about Lieberthal, too. His best season was 99, but he did a lot of his damage in the 2000s, too, so not an easy answer.
Well, I guess it's your lucky day today.
I win.
You do win.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up our Batters Inbox questions. If you want to hear what Pat and Corey have to say, leave them for us on our Facebook page. Stay tuned. There's more Phillies news.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green. Today we're going to talk about what goes up on inside of a pitcher's head a little bit. That's what the question I get from a lot of people is what's happening out there during the course of a game. And I would have, it's not a whole lot. We try to keep it as simple as we can. The good analogy I would use is probably for the people who've seen the movie For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner in it. When he said clear the mechanism and everything sort of went silent and he didn't hear, it's not that we don't hear it, it's not a predominant sound. I know that was me because the game is played in front of me. It's not played out in the stands. It's played 60 foot 6 inches away from me, and that was my focus. And I got taught that in the minor leagues with Leo Mazzoni with the Braves, and he really stressed that. He said that's going to be a difference. Don't be in awe of the situation that is around you. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever got. So it made me a little bit more comfortable when I made my focus 60 foot 6 inches away to my catcher and played catch with him. And that's answering some of the questions about what goes on in people's head.
Thank you, Tommy. Welcome back to Phillies Nation, presented by BQ Basement Systems. Corey and Pat with you. And I found this to be a pretty interesting tweet. My man Dan Mallon, you can check him out on Twitter, @Dan Mallon, he sent this to me. And it's the Phillies all wrong sibling team. And it's a pretty good team that he put together. I don't know how much research he put into this, but it seems like a lot. So check it out here. Here's the lineup. He starts off with George Sisler. His brother Dick was a Philly from 48 to 51. Tony Gwynn, obviously we know his son plays on the team now. Joe DiMaggio, his brother Vince played on the Phillies. The DH would be Jason Giambi, you know his brother Jeremy, well, he played here for one season. Going down the list, George Brett, his brother Kenny played here. Brett Boone, we know his father was a catcher. BJ Surhoff was the catcher on that team, and his brother Rich played 2 games for the Phillies in 1985. D. Gordon would be the shortstop, his father Tom, pretty good reliever in his time. And the pitcher, we didn't get Greg Maddux, we got Mike Maddux.
Of course. Phillies are good at drafting Fredo, not so much Michael. They take the brother that wants respect and doesn't get it.
That's nice, that's a good one. And to finish this off here on Phillies Nation, it's of course Twitter trivia. Last week's question was this: since 2004, which Phillies reliever has made the most appearances in a season? Real Cormier was the guy, 84 appearances in 2004.
It seemed like he was out there every night on the hill, so it doesn't surprise me.
He was a rubber-armed guy. This week's question, leave it for us at Phillies Nation on Twitter using the hashtag PNTrivia. The question is this: dating back to 1914, which Phillies pitcher not named Carlton or Roberts has made the most opening day starts? And if you get it right, we'll give you a prize.
Easy answer, Joe Roa.
Joe Roa?
Yeah.
That's what you come up with?
Didn't he start opening day once? Maybe it was a home opener.
It might have been. Good one. That's it for Phillies Nation, brought to you by BQ Basement Systems. We're here at McStew's in Levittown. Thank yous all around to Ian, to Ryan, to Tommy Green, to 2020, and our man Brian Michael, all you guys behind the camera. He's Corey. I'm Pat. That's it for Phillies Nation. We'll talk to you soon.